Hi, and welcome back. My name is Antonio Serif from CRRNTN.com. Today we'll continue the Hollywood movie title series. We're going to be looking at the animation style of movie Ghost Rider 2. In the first part in Cinema 4D, we will see how to make this mix of bevels. I will show also how to make the animation of the chain that engages on the letter, and the simulation of dragging of the logo in the scene. We will continue in After Effects, with styling composed with sparks, fire and smoke particle. Animation very interesting. At the end of this tutorial, you can learn how to draw and animate your own title with this cool style. The actual example of the Ghost Rider movie title is just for training purposes and is not to be used in a final personal project without permission from the original creators. Okay, open the file Start on Cinema. As we can see, I have organized the files in order to be ready to begin the tutorial. I inserted a camera with position Z-1920. I made each letter, starting from the inner side, with 2D drawing tools. For reference, I used the movie poster. Next, using the tool Create Outline, I have obtained expansion a segment of the path, to obtain the external spline. The subtitle, Spirit of Vengeance, is a commercial font, italic style accentuated. To better organize the work, all parts of the letters have been entered sequentially in separate layers of 2 groups. Inside logo and outside. This makes it easy to identify and select each letter or part of letter. Let's create the bevel of the letters of the logo. What makes this very interesting bevel is the extrusion slightly rounded at the inner front, where it will apply chrome material, and a spline pronounced and sharp on the outside. In this case will be applied to a red satin metallic material. The materials I'm using at the moment only serve as a visual aid to distinguish the 2 parties. I show you how you can achieve this interesting result, with a few simple steps. As already said, we have the front inside, and the outer part red base. On the inside, I applied an extrusion with depth 27. And fillet cap, with step 5, and radius 0.75. Our active checks held inwards, and constrain. For the red base, the outline was placed on Z position to 18.5, in order to be placed as close as possible to the original. Applying the tool Sweep NURBS. We get this profile. I show the spline contour here. You can also use other profiles, and get other interesting effects. Very importantly, The width and height of the profile must be modified up to be corrected in combination with the front part, so as to have a depth of about 17, in order to obtain a small ledge at the B side of the letter. In this way, view the result. Wow! Easy to do, but with an interesting result. The parameters of the sweep NURBS are to default. So summing up, this bevel technique must be applied on all the letters of the logo, so you get the incredible Ghost Rider logo. For the subtitle, I inserted a small extrusion of 0.5 with step and radius 5. Also in this case, the check constraint is active. View the result. OK. In the next step, I show you the best system of lights and materials to be applied. The result will be great. As materials and lighting system, I chose to use the tutorial of Sherlock Holmes, because we want to see a result of light that illuminates very well and consistently all the letters, together with the upper bevel hig light. Instead, for the red base, I applied a new material that has the impact of a red satin metallic material. Follow on video parameters. The check effect specular is active. First color. Second color. View the result. The result is pretty good, but if we want a result more incisive, I advise to change the parameters of the document panel. With 80 gray, disable the linear workflow and input color profile. Perfect. The material of the red base is amazing. As I said before, the lighting system is structured so as to have a perfect lighting in this animation. For those who did not see the tutorial of Sherlock Holmes, I remember you that we have a light type area arranged on the front with an intensity 40. A omni light placed over up to the logo, and a last omni light vertically arranged to illuminate the front up bevels of the chrome letters. The intensities of both are at about 100, with the shadows maps active. Before proceeding with step animation, it is important to remember that in every letter I have grouped the front chrome and red base layer in separate groups. In order to animate well each letter separately, as well as the movement of the Z position and rotation on its pivot axis. This simple procedure will take a few minutes to organize. The materials have been arranged in cubic mode. For the material of the scratches, I applied to on each letter the correct arrangement by changing the offset U and V parameters to have a more random result, and therefore better. We proceed with the next step on the animation of the letters. This is the result of the scheme of animation of the letters. Very cool. The animation is structured in the following way. Among the frames 0 and 12, from behind the camera, get the letter O. From frame 12 to 31, I animated the letter O with small movements of position and changes rotation, to simulate the hooking of the chain on it. From frame 33 to frame 45, all the letters of the logo, with a fast movement of Z position, are positioned at center of the scene. Finally, closes the sequence, with a small movement always on position Z, for the final disposition of the logo and the subtitle. To make you understand the whole structure of movements, the animation look from an aerial lateral view. As you can see, a very important detail is that the system of lights follows the evolution of the movement of the letters. Just plug it into a layer group of the R letter. In this way, the lighting is constant throughout the sequence. You can experiment the sequence of rotations with other movements and position changes. Getting that you like? Okay, proceed with the most interesting part of the tutorial, the animation chain. Wow! The effect is now complete. For the realization of this great effect, I chose to use a technique without the use of dynamic modules, soft and rigid body. In this way it is possible to customize animation to 100% of the chain that engages an object. I will show in detail how to create this effect. In this case, as the materials, I chose to use those of Conan tutorial, where I changed the colors to make them as the original video. I replaced all shades of yellow-orange with red and pink, the rest remained unchanged. View the result. Very nice. Obviously, being a material with an alpha channel is superimposed on the black matte material and roughness. Let's create the chain. First of all, we must start to create the ring of the chain. The best technique is to use the Sweep NURBS tool. Where we insert the shape of the chain, in this case, oval, and the profile is a circle. After, I duplicate the ring layer, and I have modified the angle of the rotation P, at 90 degrees. To obtain the horizontal ring, you can create other styles of chains, with other shapes and profiles as you like. This is a spline that I want to transform in the chain. We group all elements into one null group object and rename it. OK, now insert also a cloner tool. and drag inside the two rings. On Cloner, in the panel object, activate the Check Render Instances. Insert a number of clones, to about 40. Modify the Y arrangement, from 50 to 0. And X, about 21.5. As we can see, it is important to decide the number of clones based on the length of the spline we want to play. So we modify the value from 40 to 24. Now OK. To complete the procedure, we insert the tool Spline Effector. It is important to verify whether it is active in the panel effectors of the cloner. If not present, simply drag it into this box. On Spline module, in the Effector panel, drag on this line, the spline that we want to cover. We modify the parameter of the H rotation with value 90. And you're done. This is the fastest technique to create chains, or chained objects. The incredible thing is that by changing the points of the Bezier spline, you can see the change in real time, the arrangement of links in the chain. If we want to animate the chain, just create a interpolation movement on line points. I show you how. Activate the icon, turn off on point level animation with the point selection mode, and make immediate changes to one or more points. We work with automatic keyframing active. Apply a first keyframe to 0. Modify the position of the points, and confirm on icon. Active keyframes. Repeat the same procedure in the frame 30. Now, if you press play, we see that the spline animated. Fantastic! These simple steps allow you to create a chain animation, frame by frame. In this way, you can adapt after deciding the logo movement sequence. In the Ghost Rider logo, must be built around the O letter. This will require some time, but the end result will be incredible. This is the movement of the spline in our project. It is important to consider that during the elongation or reduction of the spline, create a sequence of keyframes also on clone's parameter of the rings. So, we give the effect that the chain link is always homogeneous. This mode makes it fast and clear arrangement of the rings. This is the final impact. The proper application of materials must be inside the cloner tool. Unsweep NURBS layers. In this way, you can decide the disposition of the texture for each ring cloned. OK, we can proceed with separate rendering, so you can work accurately within After Effects. Alpha channel, active. Anti-aliasing, on best. In this case, if we want to give a realistic movement, activate the effect, Vector Motion Blur. Obviously, together with the tag Motion Blur, we can turn on and decide the intensity of motion blur. You can find it in the right-click menu, under the heading Cinema 4D tags. These are videos that are used to our styling compose with After Effects. The subtitle. The start mask. The welding spark. The smoke. The our logo. The chains with adding the separate alpha channel. And finally, the audio files. OK. Open the file preview on After Effects. As we can see, the assembling is really very simple. The result of 3D video is very great. We must, in this case, combine all the element by making small corrections necessary to improve the final result. We start from the base smoke. To give the shade of dark orange color, I applied an tritone effect with this color in the midtones. As for the highlights parameter, I used a sand color. After, I added an interpolation of exposure, which starts at frame 0 with value 0. Then, to create a slight effect dark near the end of the sequence, I have inserted, in the last frame, a value of -1.3. The video start mask is optional. For copyright reasons, you can use the idea and insert another video that you like. Of course, must be shaped with the size of the letter that you're animating. You get a mask that incorporates fully the whole of the starting point. For the logo layer, I applied some effect to correct color and lighting of the surface. In order, I applied a curves effect with this scheme of points. A slight exposure to accentuate the scratches of the letter with 0.2 and 0.98. And finally, an interpolation of histogram on levels effect. Which will run from frame 13 to frame 26, with white inputs 182 and range 0.66. The value returned by default, in the frame, 50. Like the original video, I added a system of particles, with random movements in the space of the scene. I changed the system I had already created for the tutorial of the Three Musketeers. The result is very natural. Very nice. You can view the Three Musketeers tutorial to understand better this composition. To create the illusion of zooming out of the particles accompanying the 3D logo, I applied a little trick. I split the pre-comp of the particles in two parts. In the first part we has a size greater than twice, compared to our scene. I changed the stretch value of the video to 200. In this way, between frames 30 and 50, the tween scale and position creates a great effect slow zoom out motion. Very cool. Let us see in detail. From frame 50, after the logo is arrived in our scene, the particles move more slowly with a stretch value to 400. Proceed with the insertion of the sequence of the chain. Obviously, I applied the Luma mask mode for proper contour. To improve the impact of the chain video, I applied an exposure with 4.9 and 0.95. And a glow effect with threshold 70, radius 22.6, and intensity to 6.3. At this point, we can talk about the adaptation of the video of the welding sparks on our letter. I simply applied a global mask to smooth the sharp contours of the video. And a small circular mask to remove the fire part that remains of the welding instrument. Finally, I took the stretch value, about 130. This is the result. Perfect. Obviously the layer of the video is in add mode. To make it less bright, the glow of sparks, I applied an exposure with values 0.1 and 0.4. Finally, for the successful completion of our entire sequence, on the subtitle video layer, I applied an interpolation of shapes on the mask and opacity for obtain a fade-in masked reveal very softly. The keyframes of the mask interpolation works between 50 and 80, and the opacity between 51 and 70. Very important to have this result, the mask feather value should be about 100. Okay, I finally applied the technique that is also on Real Steel tutorial. The heat haze atmosphere. If you remember, I have created a distinctive fractal noise, with an expression time, to get an automatic animation without keyframes. In the fractal noise panel, Select the type, string, soft linear mode. For the rest of the parameters, set based on the final result that you want to obtain. Obviously to make the active effect, I created a new pre-comp. In the main layer, I applied an effect, displacement map. With active layer, the our fractal noise. Set the luminance mode. Finally, I inserted an interpolation on max horizontal with this values. Start with 1.8. And closes to 0.5 on frame 65. Here you can apply the value of distortion that you like. But be careful not to exaggerate. OK, add the audio file and proceed with the final rendering. This is the result of the project. Wow! Incredible! I recommend you apply this technique on logos with Egyptian-style fonts, very sharp and wide spaces between the letters. OK, I remind you the next appointment for the tutorial on the movie title style Battleship. Another great title animation. I hope this tutorial has been to your liking. By Antonio Seri from crrntn.com. Cheers.